Right now, the race toward artificial general intelligence is defined by scale and centralization. The dominant approach involves building massive, opaque models capable of ingesting vast streams of human data and compressing them inside a hidden proprietary core. Commercial vendors like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google control this ecosystem. They rely on enormous capital to construct closed systems where the training data, internal weighting, and alignment constraints are entirely hidden from public scrutiny. This architecture relies on the oracle fallacy, the assumption that a single AI can accurately map society only by absorbing all competing human values and mathematically smoothing away the conflict to produce one authoritative answer. Decades before modern AI, the economist Herbert Simon demonstrated why centralized models fail to capture reality. He showed that complex systems only become tractable when decomposed into loosely coupled subsystems, each handling a highly specific portion of the environment. Friedrich Hayek took this logic further into economics, proving that knowledge is inherently dispersed. A centralized system trying to observe everything from a single vantage point inevitably destroys the tacit, specialized knowledge existing at the network's edges. Later, Elinor Ostrom proved that complex collective action problems are best solved through polycentric governance. Multiple bounded decision centers with overlapping competencies consistently outperform monolithic central authorities. PopSwarm translates these three theories into software. Instead of building one massive model, it creates an open AI ecology populated by millions of specialized, decentralized guardian agents. Relying on a single commercial model creates a single point of failure for our digital infrastructure. To align AI with human flourishing, we need a structurally decentralized alternative where no single node holds absolute authority over the truth. Modeling human society without centralizing the viewpoint requires a completely different approach to data architecture. PopSwarm starts with philosopher Karl Popper's three-world framework, dividing reality into distinct interacting realms. The bottom plane is the physical realm, mapping tangible geographic boundaries. Stacked above is the abstract realm, mapping human organization into political, commercial, and social subdomains. Finally, the conscious realm sits at the top, mapping digital communication layers where people interact online. The core rule is specialization. One agent guards one specific concept. Every agent is bounded by a strict operational constraint. The system dictates exactly what that agent is allowed to know, what data it can access, and what actions it can execute. Contrast this with the commercial AI sector. Their models rely on promissory alignment, using reinforcement learning or hidden system prompts to essentially ask an omniscient system to behave nicely and ignore certain topics. PopSwarm uses structural alignment. An agent cannot violate its purpose or overstep its bounds, because its software architecture physically restricts its vantage point to a single jurisdiction. By strictly limiting what an agent is capable of observing, the architecture prevents it from hallucinating generalized answers outside of its specific local domain. To make reality manageable, the platform currently structures these agents across 6 initial bounding dimensions. The first dimension is place. Geography forms a hierarchical backbone, scaling upward from individual streets to city blocks, zip codes, and all the way up to national borders. Because political reality doesn't perfectly conform to maps, place agents also maintain lateral networks. This allows coalitions, diasporas, and social movements to explicitly cut across physical geographic borders. The second dimension is person. These agents represent public roles and relationships, like elected officials. They are explicitly data representations, not literal mappings of human consciousness. Every person agent carries strict provenance metadata. If a representation exists, the system proves exactly what data was used to build it, when it was generated, and by whom. The third dimension is politics. Here, agents reflect the structural elements of democratic life, tracking policy changes, moral principles, and the specific positions politicians take on legislation. Because person agents and political agents exist in different realms, they are allowed to conflict. They can hold entirely different interpretations without the system forcing them into a sanitized consensus. The fourth dimension is commercial. Every active firm in the economy is modeled hierarchically, scaling from multinational corporations straight down to local neighborhood storefronts. To understand this density, look at San Francisco alone. The city contains 170,000 registered businesses, and PopSwarm requires a localized, grounded agent for each one. At the top, macro corporate agents contain thousands of specialized child agents, capturing granular economic data like specific product lines, subsidiaries, and price tiers. These 4 dimensions generate a highly granular, cross-referenced scaffold of society. The sheer volume of localized agents ensures no central node dictates the entire structure. Dimensions 5 and 6 track social topics, like community groups and art movements, and the application layer, modeling the user bases of networks like Telegram or X. Using a fan-in, fan-out mirror process, activity on the application layer creates signals that dynamically update the corresponding agents in the physical and abstract realms. A central creator dictating a fixed taxonomy risks high modernist erasure, deleting the local, unrendered knowledge that makes communities function. The architectural solution is to treat the schema itself as a provisional entity. The categorization of the world is not hard-coded. It is entirely open to public revision. The boundaries defining what counts as an agent are public objects. They are subject to version control, transparent community proposals, and structured deliberation. Communities can use the forking concept to duplicate the schema, modify the categories to reflect their reality, and run parallel interoperating versions. The system also leaves deliberate empty slots for unmapped areas, acknowledging its blind spots rather than hallucinating assumptions. Treating the ontology of the world as a contestable, living public object ensures the architecture can map deeply contested political realities without imposing the inherent biases of its original developers. When a user submits a query, it splinters, routing questions to qualified bounded agents. The system weaves their responses into a multi-threaded trust mesh. Every answer maintains an immutable audit trail, tracing back to source agents, explicitly highlighting where they disagree instead of hiding inconsistencies. Commercial labs use complex math to smooth away conflict, prioritizing the appearance of an objective, authoritative voice. In PopSwarm, the conflict itself is the feature. In a polycentric system, trust is not manufactured by forcing consensus. Trust is earned by making the exact provenance of every disagreement visible, leaving the final judgment to the user. Each of the world's 8 billion people exists across multiple dimensions, as a voter, a consumer, a neighbor, and a digital participant. Mapping these overlapping identities across 2 million zip codes requires the architecture to scale toward 1 trillion distinct agents. The density of this architecture ensures granular, hyperlocal accountability. Most of the system's value derives from agents being small enough for the individuals they describe to check, contest, and revise their data. Modeling a society immediately causes that society to change its behavior in response. This is a pattern seen throughout economics and social science. When people know they are being measured, they begin to optimize against the metric. Investor George Soros calls this reflexivity. A massive system measuring reality inevitably alters the reality it measures. Pretending this feedback loop doesn't exist is a primary failure mode of monolithic AI. PopSwarm mitigates this by forcing its agents to publicly publish exactly what metrics they optimize for. The system tracks its own drift over time, allowing users to see exactly how the platform is altering the behavior it attempts to measure. PopSwarm occupies a specific ecological niche, one that the commercial frontier labs are structurally unable to fill. It functions as open, contestable, and publicly auditable civic infrastructure. A healthy ecosystem requires diversity. A monoculture of uniformly architected models has uniform failure modes, making the entire society brittle and susceptible to the same systemic errors. In a future dominated by powerful commercial AI, a structurally aligned contestable civic mesh is the only tool society has to verify reality.